Well, the 89th session of the Texas legislature kicked off last week, and we are already in the midst of some shenanigans. And did you know that Democrats are already running the Texas House? How does this happen? Stay tuned for this week's episode as we talk to my friend, political activist Kathy Ponce, as she gives us an update on what happened in opening session at the Texas legislature, what to keep our eye on, and how you can get involved to impact legislation this session. You don't want to miss this episode. Stay tuned. Well, Kathy, welcome to Patriots Revival Podcast. I'm so excited that you are on today. And before we get started, I know you, but our audience doesn't really know you. So I want you to tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay. Well, my name is Kathy Ponce, and I'm the legislative committee chair with the Ellis County GOP. And I give all the legislative updates and what's going on in Austin. And I literally live and breathe what is going on down there. I monitor the bills, I monitor the filings, I monitor the shenanigans, and I just do everything that I can do to make sure everybody's educated on what's going on in Austin, both the good bills and the bad bills, so that we never sell our state out one bad bill at a time.
So, Kathy, also, though, tell everybody where you're originally
Yeah,
from.
I am originally from California. I'm one of the dreaded Californians that everybody's like, here's the 100 million speeches of how to vote and how we should act when we're here. But I tell you now,
So,
I will alert you
yeah.
to everything
So,
that is a potential threat to Texas in regards to having happened in California, because I was also very active in California. I did a lot of legislative work out there as well. So I can see a bad bill a mile away.
you moved here to get away from everything that was going on in
I did.
California,
Yep.
right?
The policies were just too
Okay.
much.
So, folks, she is one of the good ones coming from California. So, I want everybody to know that. So, Kathy, we started the 89th legislative session in Texas last week. We had opening session, had some shenanigans going on. Go ahead and just kind of talk about that and then talk about the importance of the session.
Well, we had our speaker vote, and we lost that. We lost it big time to Dustin Burrows. Most people were supportive of Cook because he did sign the contract with Texas, and he promised reform in the Texas House. And we lost that 83 to 55. And Dustin Burrows got 49 Democrat votes and 36 Republican votes. So the Democrats own the
That
Texas
is
House.
crazy.
They've
Yeah.
got it, and they know it too. And I think what's more concerning is, since I've been watching Texas politics, the upper gallery has always been open to the people to watch the speaker race. And this is the first session since I've been covering Texas politics where the gallery was shut down to the people
Yeah.
to watch the speaker vote. And I know that was
Yeah. And as
because what Jill Glover did last session with all the red shirts, they didn't want to see those red shirts. And that should be just
yeah, it was
a slap in the face to us.
oh, it was. I mean, I took a day off of work. I used the vacation day and took one of those buses along with, I think there were, what, 14
Yep.
buses of people coming from all across the state wearing our red band Democrat cheer shirts, just like you said, only to not gain allowance to the gallery and having to sit. Thankfully, we were able to sit in our state rep's office, Brian Harrison, and watch. But we really wanted to be inside, and that was truly a slap in the face to me and all the other activists that were down there that day, because we were trying to send a message and yet they literally shut the
Yeah,
doors on us.
they did.
So
That's what they think of us. Not all of them. I mean, we do have, a lot of good conservatives, and we flipped a lot of seats with the people that are going to listen to us. But overall, that was just, I don't know, that was humiliating.
And then they didn't do don't they normally do the House rules vote the same day, if not the same day, the next day
Yeah. And I'm
to set
so glad
what the
you
House
brought
rules will be?
um that was postponed until Wednesday, the 22nd. Well, guess what?
Why do you think that
I
is?
had my whole little speech put out, right? And everything to go over with you. And then they got a notification. We don't even think it's going to be voted on next week. He sent a notice out that they will be adjourned until Wednesday at 2 p.m. They will meet for a short period of time, and then they will go into recess and reconvene Thursday at 2 p.m. for a short period of time. Now, the housekeeping rule has a paragraph in it that has to be taken out if we're to get a vote on no Democrat committee chairs. So I don't see a vote next week.
You don't see a vote next week, which would be looking at the calendar, that would be the week of January 27th, we won't have a
I
vote?
don't believe well, the 22nd we won't, which
The 22nd, but okay, so do you I mean, that's just unheard of, though. I mean, how long I know you've only been in Texas for a few years, but do you think it's ever been extended out this long
one time before
to set the House
2009
rules?
with Joe Strauss.
Joe
It was 2
Strauss,
weeks late.
okay. Why do you think he's dragging this out? Because he's already wasting time.
My personal thoughts, everybody's going to be so fixated on DC and what Trump is doing that maybe they'll refocus away from that vote and that issue.
So you think it's good that he's pushing then? So that would get, as you mentioned, get everybody to refocus back on Texas once everything dies down from the hoopla of the inauguration of President Trump?
I don't, it's going to be very difficult. We had a conference call on this, a couple of activists today, and we were talking about how difficult it's really going to be to get people refocused on Austin with everything going on
Yeah.
in DC. So I really think he was
Yeah.
thinking they're focused on DC. We're going to do this floor vote, little publicity, not much, and off we go into session, which is not, it's something that's something we cannot let die. We have to keep, we have to be the media now. We are the media.
Right.
And I think that's one thing Trump exposed very well. So we've got to be on social media saying, hey, this vote's next, I don't know, whenever it's going to be. And we've got to be pushing and saying, you got to call your state reps because we don't want Democrat chairs. And the thing is, it's probably going to pass. I would say with the way the vote went with Burrows, I think more than likely we will have Democrat chairs. And I think he's going to be upping it probably twice as many as Phelan had. Because if you remember, we've gone down with Democrat chairs with Phelan. You know, we made the stink. Okay, he cut him down, and then he cut him down again. But I think Burrows is gonna live up to a lot of Democrat chairs.
So on opening day, myself and a few others, we went around to some of the state reps' offices, the holdouts, the folks that said that they were going to vote for Burrows, and we were just making a last ditch effort to really encourage them to follow Republican House Caucus rules and vote for the nominee and David Cook. And so we talked to them about that, but we also talked to them since we were wearing our Van Democrat chair shirt. We said, okay, what is X reps or X Y's reps stance on banning Democrat chairs? And what I found was all those guys and gals that said that they were, I mean, they told us, no, we're voting for Burrows. And, we would talk to them and kind of try to reason with them, but didn't really get anywhere. And we moved on to the issue of Democrat chairs. I found it very interesting that all those Burrows supporters said, now we're for banning Democrat chairs. And I thought, well, that's interesting because I felt like Burrows is just going to be another Phelan 2.0. I don't know. It could be wrong. I mean, you're the expert here, but that all of the new soldiers that are now, they're former Phelan soldiers that are now Burroughs soldiers, that they're going to follow suit with kind of what Phelan did, and that Burroughs is just going to carry on. So what is your take on they're strong about voting for Burrows, but I mean, they would look us in the eye and say, "No, no, we're going to vote to ban Democrat chairs." Do you think that's legit, or do you think they were just telling us that, or you think there is a possibility that some of these Burrows folks are truly going to vote to ban Democrat chairs?
I do think some of the boroughs folks will vote to ban Democrat chairs. I do. Some of them. I just don't think it's enough of them for the House resolution to eliminate the wording in there and then take it to a floor vote on the rules. I just don't think there's enough of them. But I do think we will have some surprise votes in regards to banning Democrat chairs. I do.
What and so Kathy, talk about why it's important that we don't have Democrats chair committees in Texas.
The Democrat Party has gone so astray on their values and their platform. And, we've got the Republican platform, we've got the Democrat platform. So if we have an issue, and I'm just going to bring this up, such as the bathroom bill. So if we get the bathroom bill and we get it into a committee, and that committee is led by a Democrat chair, what are the chances that our bill is even going to get a public hearing? And if it gets a public hearing, what are the chances that it's going to be voted out of committee and not just die in committee? Because the Democrats don't want a bathroom bill. They side with the transgenders. They side with everyone but keeping women in women's restrooms and men in men's restrooms, women's locker rooms, men in men's locker rooms. So if we have our bills, and even our legislative priorities, if any of our legislative priorities, let's say we get a Democrat over the election committee, we're not going to have a single election bill pass out of that committee to help solidify our elections in Texas. They're going to give us our public hearing and they're going to say, oh, see, we want to work with you. And those bills will die in those committees. So it's really important that Republicans be over the committees with a majority Republican House so that we at least have a chance to get our bills passed. Now, this isn't to say that there aren't some Republicans that will kill our bills too. I think we saw that last session in the elections committee. But it's easier to put our pressure on our own than it is on the Democrats because they're not going to listen to it.
Right. As I mentioned, I was down there last week and going into people's offices. I mean, how important is it that people speak up about things as simple as a House rules vote to ban Democrat chairs?
Oh, it's really important. It's very important because this sets the path for the whole session. So if we can get enough pressure and enough calls made in regards to this housekeeping resolution, which is the first vote, for these guys that even if they supported Burrows, that's done, that's over. We got to forget about that. We got to do a new focus now on getting these people to understand, hey, you got your speaker. Great. Okay. Now give us a shot at our legislation. Give us a chance to get our legislation passed. And that can't happen if we have Democrat chairs. So over the major committees, we have to especially push for state affairs, in the elections committee, we have to really push to have Republican chairs. We need them in every single category, but at least let's really push to get them over the important committees. And everybody can start making those calls. These guys, their votes on that Texas House floor affect all of us. So we need to call all of these guys and be saying, where do you stand with the Democrat chair situation? Are you going to vote to remove this paragraph in the House resolution so that we can get an actual vote to the floor for the Democrat chairs? Because do you remember
I had
when it went to the House
sorry, go.
floor vote and automatically it was killed on a point of order? Right.
Yes.
Slayton brought it up and then it was just killed. Because of the resolution, there's a part of the housekeeping resolution. Oh, yes, there's a part in the housekeeping resolution. The section was added in the 88th legislative session prohibiting House resources from being used for political purposes, which resulted in the point of order against the Dem chair rule ban. And ours are going to try and remove that provision from the House rules so that an actual vote on that subject can be taken when the rules come up.
Okay.
Also, and I haven't read the latest resolution because I don't think it's rewritten. Speaker Burrows, it's hard for me to say, Speaker Burrows had put language into the housekeeping resolution to have a special attorney for the Texas House.
I heard that. So, what does that to me? What does that imply? I mean, what do we need an attorney to represent the Texas House for?
Well, there has been a lot of discussion on this amongst people, and there's a lot of different theories on that. One of the theories is that this attorney could be used for the Robertson case that's going on. That
Yep.
this attorney could be used for the Texas House if we have another Paxton type impeachment process. So there's a lot of different things going on out there. Burrows has said nothing. The talk is this is going to be taken out of the housekeeping resolution because a lot of pressure was put on him to take this out. So the same amount of pressure needs to be put on him to take out the other part of the resolution and let us have a floor vote on the Democrat chair.
Absolutely. Do you think when he actually does that vote, if it ends up being next week or whenever, do you think you think he'll close off the gallery again?
It's possibility, yeah.
So what about parliamentarian? Is that not a very important position in the Texas House as well?
Oh, it's a huge position after we saw what happened last session on our bills. I mean, our bills were killed on points of order due to grammar error. Like that can't be fixed after the bill's passed, right? I don't see a change.
You think that
Forgotten
the
it.
existing parliamentarian, which I don't know his name, what's his
Hugh
name?
Brady.
Yes, which he was, am I correct in saying he served in the Obama administration or something to that
Yeah, he
effect?
was an attorney in the Obama administration.
So
Yeah.
you don't think Burroughs,
We,
what's
we
that?
do have three parliamentarians. We have Hugh Brady.
Oh, I didn't realize there were
He
three.
is the Democrat, and then we have a Republican parliamentarian as well, but she's really not a Republican. I mean, she even has donations to Democrats as well. And then they have a part-time parliamentarian to fill in case something happens to the other two parliamentarians.
Is that part of the House rules vote or no? He just that person, those people just stay intact. How does that work? Because I don't think I even know that.
Just the speaker appoints them.
Okay, so it's just they're just appointed positions.
Yes, they're appointed by the speaker. So Hugh Brady was appointed by Dennis Bonnen,
Hmm.
and then Sealand just kept him on. And I don't see Burroughs making a change.
Well, moving on to legislation. So I know there have already been how many bills filed? Like several hundred?
Oh no, we're in like the 18, almost 2000s now.
Oh wow. Okay.
Crazy.
What are some top bills that you think we really need to? I mean, I know everybody has that issue that's important to them. I mean, somebody maybe dirty books is their thing, or the issue that really gets under their skin, or maybe it's the border, or maybe it's the securing our grid or election integrity. So I know there have been bills filed on all of these issues, probably related to all these. Of course, the Republican Party of Texas platform and our actually I have to say priorities. What are some bills that you feel will really hot topics that you think will be top of the list? I mean, hopefully, our legislators will follow through with the Republican Party of Texas priorities. But what are your thoughts on anything outside of that that you think might be hot topics or hot bills that we need to keep an eye on?
Outside of our legislative priorities, a property tax, I think that there's going to be a huge focus on property tax reform once again to give the taxpayers a break. And there's almost 218 bills filed on that issue where some sort of property tax reform, including ISD reform, and some of the electioneering bills also coming into there, give some sort of property tax relief to the citizens. They have 8 eliminate property tax bills. So if your passion is eliminating property taxes, well, you better get the folks down there and start fighting for it because it's a tough one. It's going to be a tough one. The majority of the people out there and the groups, the eliminate property tax groups, are getting behind Steve Toth's bill. They feel that that's the most comprehensive bill to eliminate property taxes. But there's also bills out there filed to, if it goes over. So right now we have the no new revenue rate and the voter approval rate. What they want to do is combine those two so that it's just one rate that your cities and counties go with. And if they go over that amount, it has to go to the votes of the citizens. If they want to go over, I believe it's 3% at this point, then it has to go to a vote of the citizen. There's votes where if your county judge and commissioners want to have a raise over the cost of living raise, it has to go on the ballot for a vote because we all know that that affects the budgets, affect your property taxes. So there's talk to eliminate the M&O at the school districts so that the state takes care of that. And that would lighten up some of the property tax burden. But then you're going to come in with the bond, so more schools will be passing bond. So there's a lot in regards to the property taxes. I think property taxes is going to be a huge, huge issue because remember, we had 6 interim hearings on this subject, and that has never,
Yeah.
ever happened in the state of Texas, ever. So I think that property taxes will definitely be big on the radar.
What are some good bills that you feel like we really need to, whether they're in line with the RPT priorities or not? What are some bills that you really feel like they may go somewhere, that we may actually get something done with some of these and the whatever the issue is and some of the bills that fall under the umbrella of that issue?
I think there's 3 things we can look at in regards to good bills possibly happening. And they're good, but they're gonna be a fight. They're gonna be a battle. We need people to speak up on these. And that is we have a DEI bill for higher education that passed last session. So I do believe that a DEI bill will pass this session in regards to K through 12 and everything state level. And in those bills, it also includes companies cannot require DEI training, because you know how sometimes when you're a new hire or every couple of years, you've got to take those DEI trainings. So I think that the DEI bill is going to come up, and I do think that's going to pass at some level of rather than just the higher education part.
So do you think on the DEI, so you're saying there may be some that would even prohibit private employers from requiring that DEI training?
Yes, because that's actually a federal mandate.
Okay.
So we can actually
Okay.
provide a federal mandate. One of the
Okay.
committees in one of the legislative priorities is federal overreach, the Federal Overreach Committee. So the fact that DEI is being put on us by the federal government through these companies, we can actually seek to eliminate.
Okay. Yeah, because I mean I work in corporate America and it is just the DEI is just I don't even want to get
Yeah,
started on that
it's,
topic, but yeah, so I would love to see that come to fruition to where that could
yeah.
be
I get and
prohibited.
Abbott's talked about it. So Abbott has been doing
Mhm.
some X tweets or whatever you want to call them, X posts in regards to that issue. So if that happens to fall in line with its priorities, then we can definitely see a good bill. But we've got to monitor it, make sure it's not a watered down bill. And
Yeah.
then I think we will definitely, because 27 other states have already passed this bill, is the hostile foreign nations, not selling land to hostile foreign nations and people from hostile foreign nations. I definitely think that bill will pass. Cole Hefner, who led the interim hearings this summer, filed his bill a couple days ago. It needs a little
Okay.
tweaking, but I definitely think this will be Cole Hefner's bill, and I definitely think he will be running with it.
Did that one pass in the Senate but died in the House last
It
year?
did.
I mean last
2
session?
versions passed in the Senate, but honestly, those Senate versions weren't even worth passing. they had watered it down so
Right.
much. And the problem with that bill was all the Asian community, the Hispanic community, all the communities showed up saying that it was racist, that it was discrimination, that they're good people and we deserve to have land in Texas. And we didn't show up. It was 247
Yeah.
leftists signed up to speak. 3 conservatives signed up to speak on those bills. And so,
I'm glad you mentioned that because that's a perfect example, like you said, of I mean, what 200 and some odd people that were against it, and then 3 that were for it, which would have prohibited foreign entities from purchasing land into
hostile for
or they were they considered any foreign entity, or was it just a more foreign government?
foreign government.
I can't remember. Right. That's really sad to know that because all the people, so many Texans are against selling land, Texas land, to foreign governments, but yet only 3 people were there to testify. So, I mean, that's another reason why I'm glad you mentioned that so that we can get people to understand that the left really shows out a lot more than strong conservatives whenever it comes down to the actual important hearings and testimony and everything that you're presenting before a
Mm,
committee. So,
definitely. They show up on the pivotal issues, especially where they know Republicans are weak. And we have some weak Republicans that don't think we should ban purchasing of land to anybody. So we have to really show
yeah.
up on that one because, we don't need watered down versions. And what really ticks me off is when we have this hearing, the people that can't speak English, normally you get 1 to 3 minutes to speak, depending on how many people are signed up to speak. Well, that one we got 3 minutes, but they got it extended to 6 minutes because of their interpreter. Like, okay, so because you have to interpret for this person, they get 6 minutes to speak.
Double the
Yeah.
time,
Mhm. Yeah.
basically. Mm.
And they rioted.
What else do you
Well, I
think?
shouldn't say rioted, but they were marching the Capitol against that bill last session.
That's
Yeah.
crazy. That's crazy.
And then I think another bill that we might
So,
get passed this session is the ban taxpayer funded lobby. But we
okay.
have to watch out that it doesn't get watered down. And because it is Mays Middleton's bill, he won't let a watered down version pass. He'll pull the bill and say, forget it. We're not letting a watered down version pass. And I respect him for that. So I think we'll get some traction on that one. And I also think we'll get some traction on the bathroom bill. And this is something that's so important to everyone. In 2017, the bathroom bill could have been filed and passed in special session. But Dan Patrick stated we didn't need that bill. Today, President Trump sent out executive order on women and men. Okay. So that would kind of allude under the bathroom bill. We can't get
Yeah.
lazy and think, well, President Trump already took care of this. You know what I mean? The men are men and women are women, and it's very defined now by the federal government. Well, that's an executive order. But what we need to do is we need to make sure that that becomes law in our state. We need to make sure that we are fighting to get good conservative legislation passed so that if we ever do have a Democrat again, we have our laws in place. And there are dozens of other states that have
Absolutely.
already passed the bathroom bill. We cannot get in that mentality that Trump's going to take care of everything. We have to get our legislation passed in regards to his executive orders.
Speaking of that, so today on day 1, I know he threw out some executive orders related to border security. Because he is back in office, do you see anything how do you see that impacting because he's thrown out some of these executive borders or excuse me, these executive orders to help secure our border and declared a national emergency at our southern border. Do you think that will mean that we're going to go back to okay, well the federal government's got this now and we just need to to back off, or do you still see some of the border security bills that were filed? Do you see those having any legs?
I do believe that our border bills will have traction this session because of who the authors are. We've got Briscoe Cade, Senator Bob Hall, Nate Schatzline. They are three of the reps that have great border bills filed, and they're not going to let this issue die. They're going to want their bills to pass. Also, there is still just a lot of talk in regards to this is great. Trump's helping us. He's shutting the border down. But what if we get another Democrat president and we have to go through this again? So there is a lot of talk and there's a lot of traction for the bill that creates a border security team for the state of Texas. Kind of like HB 20 last session when it died. Well, it's a new kind of revamped bill this session. And I think someone that won't let this issue die is Governor Abbott, because think he knows what it's like. He's done a good job on doing what he could do to secure our border, and I definitely think we're going to get some border bills passed. Yeah, I do.
What do you speaking of Governor Abbott? I know that he went on the campaign trail and was really vocal. I mean, he's very pro school choice, and I can't remember that did not. Oh, did school choice make the priorities list? I can't remember. It did,
No,
didn't it?
it did not, but it was added
No.
by an
Okay.
RPT chair. So he did add.
Okay. Yeah, by Abraham George.
Yeah,
So I know we weren't able to get a school choice bill done in the 88th session and any of the one of the other four special sessions that were called. I'm just interested to get your take on how you think that's going to go this session. If you think we'll get something done, and what do you think it'll look like if we're able to get it done?
I do believe that there will be a school choice bill passed this session, but it cannot be to pass school choice just to pass school choice. It has to be a bill that fits Texas. And it has to be a bill that is right for us. And some of the bills you can look to is the Arizona school choice bill, the Florida school choice bill, Tennessee, Alabama has done one, Arkansas has done one. I think I mentioned at the GOP meeting that a lot of these states, the big issue that they're dealing with now is illegal aliens applying for the fund of either an ESA or a voucher. And that is something that Texas has to address. Now, I know there was a state rep meeting about 3 days ago with Wes Riddell, Katrina Pearson, Mish Little, a whole group of conservative Texas House reps. And they are aware of that issue, and they are going to request that it be citizens only that can apply for any funding. That could be a holdup. And it shouldn't be, but it could be. Because that will be the trigger of sending Pryor versus Doe back to the Supreme Court, which I can't wait to see. And I would love to have AG Paxton up there fighting. So I do think that there will be a school choice bill passed. It can't be at the expense of just the hurrahs at the end of the session. I got it passed.
Yeah. Some other important ones that you think we need to highlight today.
We have a lot of election bills coming through. We have a bill to ban ranked choice voting in Texas, which is really big. We really need to get behind that one. Senator,
Talk about that for just a second for people who don't really understand what that is. Just real quick, maybe.
so ranked choice voting is basically if you have five candidates and you choose your first candidate and then you mark your second candidate, then you mark your third candidate, your fourth, and your fifth candidate of who you want. And that is what ranked choice voting is basically all about. And it can even go into a runoff where okay, it's down to three candidates now. What's your first, your second, and your third? And you rank them by choice. And it's the left's favorite tool to help turn a state blue, especially at the local level. It's not what America was founded on as far as elections go. And it's something that we have to really be careful of in Texas. And we need to
Yeah.
make sure that it's banned here. And
Well,
Senator Hughes will carry that bill, and he carried the Eric bill last session. So definitely look for that one. We also have an election bill to show proof of citizenship when you register to vote.
yes.
And there's two really good bills on that one. Two really, really good bills. So the elections committee is looking at which bill fits the legislative priorities better to get behind and push. And that's something that we need to really get behind as well. Some other
Okay.
bills that we have some gender issues that are still coming up this session, banning the use of any taxpayer resources for transgender surgeries. That one's going to come up. Senator Hall has a lot of gender bills coming up in regards to in the current school system, a parent does not have to be notified if their child is talking about transgender issues or transitioning or
Oh,
my name is really Billy when I'm a Susie. E- Parents don't have to be notified of that when it's happening in the schools. And so Bob Hall's bill would mandate that parents be notified if there's anything that your child is gearing towards possibly transgender issues. I think that's huge because, a lot of blue states have passed bills saying, nope, you can't tell the parents. What happens at the school stays at the school. You don't tell the parents. So Texas needs to say, nope, something's going on. Parents need to know. They need to know what their child's talking about or doing at school. I think that's going to, I know Senator Hall's going to really, really push that bill. He's also got a really good bill in regards to teaching transgenderism in the schools. Needs to go. Teachers do not need to teach about transgenderism. They should not be even discussing that. So that bill would eliminate any teaching of transgenderism or same sex issues and all of that stuff. Get back to teaching, right?
wasn't there a bill? I think you mentioned it at the GOP meeting. I don't remember who filed it, but I thought that you mentioned someone filed for if a child or a minor has already started the process of the,
Trans-
you know, transitioning, that insurance company and they want to transition back, that I believe insurance companies should cover that, because in the current environment, isn't it that, let's say a boy decides he wants to be a girl and he's already started the transition process, but yet halfway in, of course, we know that that bill got done in the last session to where we're gonna ban the gender modification stuff. But if someone has already started the process, I believe in the current environment, if they want to go back and try, that insurance companies are not covering that. And wasn't there a bill that would say that that would have to be covered? Or did you cover that at our GOP meeting, or did I misunderstand that?
No, you're absolutely correct. It's actually by Jeff Leach and it's HB
Okay.
778. If an insurance company covers gender affirming care, that they must also cover treatment to reverse the transition.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because you've got a lot of states out there that are not covering the transition process, and those kids are stuck in the middle. Yeah, they made a
Yeah.
mistake, but gratefully they realized, so they shouldn't be stuck having to deal with that.
Yep. Any other hot ones?
Um, we need to get our grid fixed. After 8 sessions,
Yes.
I think Bob Hall deserves to have his grid bill passed. And,
Yes.
with all of these data centers coming in, they use more energy than any new developments being built. They use more energy than the transplants coming here. The data centers are our number one energy sucker, and they're going up everywhere in North Texas. So we have got to protect our grid. We have got to get that bill passed. And I can't see why it's not. This is a nonpartisan issue. I mean, I would think the Democrats would want people safe too, and have electrical power. So that should really
Yeah.
be big concern. And we really got to get behind Bonshall on that one. We really need to get behind Briscoe Kate on his ban red flag laws in Texas.
Oh, yes. Yes.
That's a big one coming up. That's going to be a tough battle, but this is his third session filing that bill, and it's usually after 3 sessions you kind of get a victory. So we definitely need to get
Yeah.
behind that one. Also, there's a bill for to carry concealed handguns on school campuses. So kind of
Okay.
eliminating
Yep.
the no go, the no gun free zones in Texas. And we have a lot of water bills because we have water issues that we have to keep an eye on.
Yes.
We do have a mud bill that is filed, and this is something I want everybody to understand that is so important. I have sent this mud bill out to a lot of people, and I always get the response back, well, it has no teeth. Well, I don't like this bill. Well, this bill sucks. Whatever. I've heard it all. This time frame right now where we're at, from now until committee assignments are heard, is our time to look at these bills and to say, well, I like this issue, but I think this bill needs to be changed a little bit. This is our time to contact the state rep over that bill and say, hey, would you consider this amendment? Hey, would you consider adding this? Would you consider deleting this? Because they will listen. These are just draft bills right now. They're not permanent, they're not set in stone. They're filed to get filed. And I have someone in the Ellis County GOP that's actually working with a state rep to modify the AI bill from Gio Caprileone. So they listen. This is your time to have their ears because once committees start, it's just the phone calls and the showing up to the public hearings. So, like I told everybody, take this mud bill, go to Senator Hall, go to Cecil Bell, tell them what you want to see. We can't be afraid anymore of Austin. We can't be afraid of state reps that aren't our own state rep. We've got to take this time to say, can you do this for this bill? Would you think about this? And half the time they do. Half the time they will listen to you, and then you have your voice in that bill to make it stronger. Now you need to show up when it comes to
Yeah.
a public hearing.
Yeah. I had someone ask me the other day when I was telling them about the importance of making phone calls or sending emails. And someone said, well, if you can't actually talk to the actual elected official, does it really matter? And I said, oh, yes. They count phone calls, they count emails. If it's an issue, if it's a committee that they're on, they will, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but they will look and see, okay, how many people do we have that are for this? How many do we have that are against this? I mean, they take all of that into consideration, correct?
Yes, they do. And you don't
Yeah.
have to talk to the state rep to make a difference because
Right.
it's the chief of staff that runs the show. So if you can
Yep.
get the chief of staff ear, that's better than the state rep ear. And if you can get the
Yeah.
legislative director who actually wrote the bill to be on board with you, that's all important. That's actually more important. If I've had a appointment and out of the chief of staff, leg director, or the state rep, if I had the three choices of who to meet with, I'd want to meet with the leg director and then the chief of staff because those are the ones that modify everything behind the scenes. They're the ones that
Hmm.
go to the state rep and say, well, I had a meeting with so and so today, and they're actually kind of right on this. And I think this is what we should do. 99.9% of the time, that chief of staff is going to influence that state rep. So you don't have to talk to the rep. It's the behind the scenes that you have to really influence and get to know. So it's okay if you get to talk to the state
Absolutely.
rep. That's okay.
Yeah. Just to kind of recap, we think that there'll be a House rules vote. Definitely not this week, which at the time of this recording, this is the week of January 20th, but we don't think that there will be a House rules vote this week. We think there might be next week, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So people could be contacting their state representatives, encouraging them to ban Democrat chairs. Do you think it's worth it for them to call other state reps as well?
Oh, yes.
Or for sure vote those within their own state rep whose district they live in?
Well, first you want to influence your state rep in the district that you live in, but
Yeah.
you need to call other state reps as well. The first thing we need to do is we need to have that paragraph taken out of the housekeeping resolution. That's got to come out so that there can be a vote on no Democrat chairs. So that's the really important part, to make sure that they understand that and that they do that. Yeah, we have to start being an influence on other state reps because their vote affects our life. When they hit that Texas House floor, yeah, they're voting for their constituents, but their vote can also help or screw up my life. So the pressure to be put on them, we do. We need to put pressure on the other state reps. And in
Agree.
politics, one phone call equals 10 voters. So
I'm glad you said that.
yeah, one phone call equals 10 voters. One person showing up to a city council meeting and speaking equals 10 voters. So if you kind of think that way, and that's been kind of the standard in politics for years. So if you think that way, if you can get 50 people to call, if you can get 500 to call, you can make a real impact on these guys. But they have to get,
Absolutely.
we have to get the numbers going for them to understand in their heads that this is 10 voters, this is 20 voters. Oh my, this is 40 voters. Oh, this is 60 voters. That can flip my race next season. So it's really
So
important.
what do you think? So you think that's what we should have, what people really need to do now is call their state reps, call other state representatives outside of their district, encourage them to ban Democrat chairs and to take out the paragraph. We repeat what they need to say whenever they call to remove the paragraph?
So when you're calling your state rep, you need to call them and ask them that when the housekeeping resolution comes up on the floor, that they need to pull the section added in the 88th session prohibiting House resources from being used for political purposes. That section needs to come out and that section needs to be voted on. So if that section gets voted down, that will be a prelude to the possibility of us being able to ban Democrat chairs. If they vote to keep it in, then that's part of a prelude to the fact that we will have Democrat chairs again.
Yeah. At this time, that's probably the most important action item for folks to get going on right now.
Yes, because if we can't get that paragraph removed from the housekeeping rules, there will be no vote on Democrat chairs. It will be killed on a point of
Okay.
order.
So calling, what about sending emails? How would you weigh an email sent versus a phone call to a state rep's office?
I would even put an X tweet, whatever you want to call it, as more important than an email. I would say,
Really?
yeah, I would say that a call is number one.
Okay. First priority,
First
if you
priority call.
can, is to make a phone call.
Mhm.
Okay.
If you can, X these guys and be polite, say, hey, speakers or, state rep so and so, where do you stand on this? Would you please consider, voting on, yes, to take this resolution out of the housekeeping rules?
I've n- I've never thought about using X as a means. I mean, yes, I know you can communicate with them on X, but I guess I just never really thought about it. I mean, I guess they would take that into consideration as well, even though it's not a recorded, like a phone call would be or an email. You're saying even just an X post would make a lot of difference because you're calling them out publicly
Yeah. And,
on a
and
social media platform.
exactly. And always be friendly to them because you never know when you're going to need their vote in the corner. But always be
Yeah.
respectful. And, when you start to really get going on X, the Texas State House is like phenomenal on X. Like you can, I mean, they're just very active over there. I mean, you can start looking at Jared Patterson's feed, and Jeff Leach's feed. They go at it. I mean, they're back and forth with the people, and not always in a good way with those two, but they're back and forth. They go back. Brian Harrison responds back. He retweets tweets during last session when Dustin Burrows was working on HB 2127, which was the municipality bill. He was on X a lot back and forth on that bill. So there's a whole world on X of our Texas state reps that we need to start digging into. We really do.
Yeah.
Emails, delete, delete, delete. Half of them go to spam. Unless you're sending
Really?
a report or you're you've done all this reporting and you have this great report to send out, the emails will go. They're gone. Now,
Mm.
when the Texas House is in session and we have the public hearing comments, those are very important to get in because those become a part of the House history. So all of those are on
Yeah.
the history of the Texas House. Those are very important.
Anything else anything else you think we need to add today?
Well, the Senate, Lieutenant Dan Patrick
Oh,
has
yeah. We
formed
didn't
his
really
committee
talk about the Senate.
in the Senate, and he has no Democrat chairs. So that's good. And he
Yeah.
also created a new committee on economic development. Now, this committee used to be paired with natural resources. So these are now two separate committees. So that's important to watch, especially when our water bills are going to go. Governor Abbott has his State of the State address on February 2nd. And that is a Sunday
Okay.
evening, and he will be listing his priorities. So the governor's priorities always come first, even before the RPT legislative priorities. Those
Right.
are priorities, and the governor's priorities are actually what the state house will work on for the first 60 days of the session. 30 or 60 days. It's just Abbott's priorities.
Yeah.
And then
But
March 11th, we
there
have
should
a press trip. We'll be meeting in the parking lot of the Lowe's at 6:30 a.m. to go to Austin. So if anybody, I know that's kind of deep into the session, and I'll be going before then by myself. But if anybody wants to go on that bus trip to learn how to talk to legislators, how to walk the halls, how to testify, because there will be committee hearings going on at that point, and it's free. It's being sponsored by Texas Gun Rights and Gun Owners of America. And we'll be walking the halls for Second Amendment rights, but also for our legislative priority.
because it's a GOA, Gun Owners of America, for like you say, free bus trip, leaving Lowe's and Waxahachie at 6:30 a.m., going down there, and you're going to be there. So in case people want to learn more about the process, then you can help them with that,
Oh,
correct?
there'll
We
be a
can help
few
them with
people
that.
on that bus, very trained,
Okay.
experienced activists who will help you walk the halls of Austin. We'll go to you with you to a committee hearing. There'll more than likely will be a state affairs hearing that day. We'll write out what you need to say, what you want to say. We will go through the entire process of everything with you.
Yeah, and it's my understanding I mean, you don't have to be a member of Gun Owners of America to go. You just there's not really any qualification. You can just show up and get on the bus and go to Austin.
Correct. They just want to train up activists, which is what we need to do.
Yeah. All right. Well, Kathy, I really appreciate you being here with us this evening. As you and I have talked, we're gonna have you on multiple times throughout the session, and once committee hearings get underway, I know we'll be doing this a lot more frequently. But I really appreciate you coming on tonight and just talking Texas politics with us, and informing everybody.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And one other house or one other homework assignment. If you have an X account,
Yes, yes,
I want
yes.
everyone to X Dustin Burrows to get
Okay.
committee assignments assigned as soon as possible so we can work on our bills. So
Yes.
that's the second homework
So
assignment.
our
X him.
Yeah, so our altar call is going to be we're going to get everybody to call their state reps and other state representatives to remove the resolution from the previous House rules so that a vote can be held so that we can move forward to with the House rules for this session and ban Democrat chairs and for everybody to get on X and reach out to Dustin Burrows about assigning committee chairs,
Yes.
getting committee assignments done, committee chairs, and just the folks that are on the committee as well. So,
Yes.
all right. Well, Kathy, thank you so much for being here with us on Patriots Revival. Really, really appreciate the time. Looking forward to our next chat.
Thank you. And I'll see you soon, if not in Austin.
That's right. Well, folks, that wraps up our interview with Kathy Ponce, my friend, political activist, and the legislative chair of the Texas legislature for the Ellis County GOP. Kathy is a wealth of knowledge. She knows tons of people. She is in the know in Texas politics, and she's going to visit with us periodically throughout this legislative session, which runs January through May of this year, unless extra sessions are called afterwards. So we will be checking in with her regularly to get updates on some of the bills that she talked about today, talk about ways that you can get involved. And to wrap up, your altar call for this week is as follows. Remember, we talked about reaching out to your state representatives, calling their offices and telling them to remove the House resolution from the 88th legislative session, which prohibits House resources from being used for political resources. So that way they can move on to voting on a House rules package for this legislative session, which would in turn allow them to vote for your second altar call to ban Democrat chairs. Folks, we are the majority party in Texas. There should be no reason why Democrats should be chairing committees because, as Kathy talked about in this episode, when a Democrat is the head of a committee, we have good legislation, good, strong legislation, conservative legislation that tends to not even get past a committee hearing because Democrats kill it. So we need to encourage our state representatives and others, even those that are not within your district, to ban Democrat chairs. And then finally, if you have an X account, do as Kathy suggested and go on X and reach out to Dustin Burrows, the newly elected Speaker of the House, and ask him to go ahead and move forward with chair appointments and committee assignments because they can't get to work. They can't get anything done until these committees are formed. So if you have an X account, reach out to Dustin Burrows. His X account is at Burrows 4, and that's the number 4TX. I checked that just a moment ago. Yes, that is at BURROWS4, which is the number 4TX. And reach out to Burrows and encourage him to get those committee assignments done so our state representatives can get to work. In the Senate, they're already getting going. So we just need to get the House in order. Folks, that's all we have for you on this week's episode of Patriots Revival. Don't forget our favorite verse, that is Psalm 119:25, that says, "Though I lie in the dust, revive me by your word." Dust off that Bible, folks. Get in God's word. Think about and pray about this legislative session because, as Kathy mentioned, there are some bills that are going to be heard and some bills that have been filed that are related to gender modification and boys and girls bathrooms and some other things that are a complete deviation of God's word. So be in prayer about this legislative session, folks. I hope that you have an awesome week and we will see you next time on Patriot Survival. Bye.